The Untold. It is the untold truth about ourselves and the state of the fitness industry. This is a 4-part series, each offering the wisdom and insight of 4 great coaches. We kick it off with my first guest, Idi Amin, the man whisperer. We discuss how many personal trainers got into fitness in order to survive their childhoods, in order to survive being bullied, being short, being whatever it is that they thought they were lacking, in hope that people would approve of them. We also discuss how having the body and the muscles is in fact making the client feel even worse about themselves, so neither the client or the trainer ever grows. We also discuss how in particular the male personal trainer have old inhibiting patterns running on, and the issue they have is they generally don't have any space in their own lives, they don't know who they are, and they certainly don't know what they want. And finally, something that resonates with me most is a lot of the male personal trainers with these type of challenges going on have lacked a real male role model in their lives.
Become a better personal trainer by becoming a better man. Become a better man by applying knowledge from others who've walked across the fire and have a thing or two to say about it. Listen to Joe as he delves into some of the greatest minds of the best coaches in the world, who bring inspiring stories and powerful insights to share about the human condition. Hear how the fitness industry goes only muscle deep, and how a new breed of trainers are using emotional and mindset hacks to improve as men, evolve their game, and make the competition irrelevant. Trigger your pathway to greater fulfillment. With us, stand in the face of fitness. Welcome to the Fit Man Collective.
Fit Pros, what up? My name is Joe Hanney and I'm your host, founder of the Fit Man Collective. I'm glad you are here with us today and I appreciate your attention. This show is about becoming a better personal trainer by becoming a better man, a fit man. I ask the all-important questions that as men feel that we can't ask, especially as we build this illusion that we're busy, we're comfortable, robots almost, and that we know what we're talking about. Selling the image of fitness, our bodies, our health is exhausting and is often done at the expense of the other important areas of our lives: family, love, intimacy, connection, freedom, self-mastery, financial security, just to name a few. These are the blind spots in which I hope this show will help you explore. Today we are going to be talking about you and all things related to men with the one and only man whisperer, Idi Amin. But before we do, I just want to let you know that you can get all the show notes, links and everything we talk about for this show at www.thefitmancollective.com. And second, if you haven't already joined our Facebook group, then head over to www.facebook.com/groups/The Fitman Collective, where we have deeper conversation about these shows. Now I want to introduce you to my guest today. His name is Idi Amin and he's a coach, consultant and guru all things men. He came from dramatic beginnings: death threats, refugee camps, paternal abandonment, childhood mental health issues and racism. He moved to London and became a high-flying adrenaline junkie. Tight deadlines, extreme sports, anything that might distract him from the pain and emptiness he held deep within. He realised that in order to help himself, he had to own his shadows and release the depressed, paused buttons from the past that kept him stuck in the same old story. So he sat down with his shadows, unlearned his limiting stories, turning addictive adrenaline into endorphin buzz that he now calmly shares with clients. Previously, he's worked in development in Fiji, co-ran a natural health centre in Sydney, worked with Mother Teresa in Calcutta whilst adventuring in the world. He was also responsible for the rebrand of the supplement company Maxi Muscle. So I'm absolutely delighted to have a incredible guest with us today, Idi Amin, who is described as the coach, the consultant and guru to all things men by the Daily Express. And I love this quote. He's also known as the man whisperer, which I think Newsweek honoured him with that title. So, Kenny, welcome to the show. How are
Thank you. Very chuffed to be here.
Good, excellent. So we're going to dive straight into this today. So if you could just give those of you that don't know you, the audience, could you just tell the audience what you do?
What I do in a nutshell especially with men, I guess, is get them from surviving boys into self-aware men, get them from second guessing and just the whole anxiety of life, competing unconsciously, whatever, into consciously being present so they can take part in life. And from there, it gets them out of the same old story repeating, the same old relationships, the same old outcomes. And then once they're conscious and they know what that's about, then they can write their own script.
Excellent. And I know that you are renowned for saying, for once people own their stories don't own them anymore. And I'm interested to hear about your story and what led you down this path to help men in particular.
To jump in the middle of the story, I remember, so I've had a busy life, mainly in marketing and publicity, launching lots of businesses and products for clients, music business, etc., etc. And then came the self-awareness stuff, natural health and turning people on, I guess, one way or another. And I remember I was living in my house in Muswell Hill in London, and everything was going very, very well. I was in the media a lot. I had lots of clients, etc., etc. And then suddenly I got spooked, and it was quite a familiar spooking. And things were going so well that I recognized that I was getting scared. Mm-hmm. Ordinarily, when I feel like this, I'd run away. So I would change career, change home, change country, whatever. But things were going well, and there was a need to run. And then I realized that behind that, I had a fear of the bogeyman getting me. So we were doing very well when I was a child in Africa. I'm a refugee from Uganda. Life was great with my family, the community, the weather, the mangoes, whatever. Things were wonderful. And then suddenly Idi Amin took over. My father was on the death list. My mother, with the work she was doing, was in danger. So we went into hiding, and we had to run for our lives. And we came here. I was 7, and I was pretty much suddenly the head of the family. My father was left in Africa, and he was supposed to be killed. So we didn't see him for 9 months. We did refugee camps. We moved to a small town in Wales, etc. The key to the story is, on one hand, there is the drama of it, and it's quite kind of glamorous in a way to look at it from the outside, where it was quite simply my experience. It could be easy to get addicted to a story like that, and this is my story, and therefore I'm cool, or therefore I'm special, or haven't I done well, or whatever, where it's not about the story. I don't need my story to own me. It's about me owning the story so I don't repeat it, and living my life, showing up to life and seeing how it wants to move me forward. That's where opportunities and things just fall out of the air. The best people and the best opportunities in my life have all 100% showed up when I'm out of control, not while I'm in control and surviving. If I'm in control and surviving, I'm demanding that the same thing happen. So to go back to my house in Muswell Hill, I realized that I kept moving. I've lived in Australia and Fiji. I've been in the music business, publishing newspapers, design PR, whatever. I kept moving because as soon as it went so well, or it was about to really hit the big time to settle, then it's, well, actually what comes after settling? Well, that's when we get threatened. That's when we lose it all. Will I have it in me to make it again? So I avoided losing and making it again unconsciously. Most people will have similar patterns, maybe with women, with girlfriends, with business partners, with best friends, with work. Something keeps happening. I'm always left to clear up after the relationship splits, after she betrays me. I do all the work in the business, and then my business partner takes all the money, and I don't have total voting rights to really make something of it. Whatever it is that keeps repeating, it's that story, that script that needs to be changed. When I realized, I thought, well, I can't have this. I'm not going to keep on running for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. I loved the work that I did, different things, the different chapters, the places I've lived, the stuff I've done. But it wasn't about the outside life and how much fun it was and my friends and whatever. It was about how I felt inside. And I needed to feel calm and safe. I needed to feel joy and free. I needed to take part. I was over self-preservation, second-guessing, fear, paranoia, God knows what, avoiding the inevitable. So I needed to turn it around, and I learned to turn it around. Basically, that's what I do with my clients. I help them turn that around. And a lot of them, an awful lot of them, have pretty much everything crossed off the list. They've got loads of money, dream job, dream home, dream wife, dream whatever. So it's all crossed off the list, and surely then they should be happy because that's what they've chased. But generally, that's when they realize that it's not going to happen from the outside. It needs to happen from the inside. And they realize they want passion. They want to be present. They want a sense of purpose. They want a personal power rather than a black personality that survives and is popular.
Mm. Yeah, and it's a tremendous story. And there was one question I was going to ask you, and I think you just answered it. At what point did you become that self-aware that something just wasn't feeling right, even though you had all this, should we say, the success, and many people that you describe, the clients that you work with, are tremendously successful, whether it's money, relationships, business, etc. When do people usually recognize it, and how do they? And do people have that much self-awareness that you've come across, or is it something that you have to really help them come to understand?
When, unfortunately, used to be when men were in pain, when someone died, when someone left them, when they got a health condition, when the chips were down and they had to do something about it and they could no longer hold it together, that's when, in the old days, it's changed over the last 5-10 years, where now there is a big movement of men who want to be men. Not flash boys, but self-aware men with purpose, with a good head on them, with good health, etc. So people Google and they somehow come across me. I've been running men's groups for, about 14 years now, and I'm very well known for men's groups. I run them internationally online or in London, and I'm now starting to train people how to run them. So that's a tool to pass it on, rather than, I find a lot of men, especially the more masculine men, for some reason, don't like to go to therapy. They want, quite often, a quick, harsh in and out to understand it and know what to do. And I'd say one of the differences between men and women is men like to do. There's something up, I'll fix it. What do you want me to do? Where women, or the feminine side, is a lot more with being present, feeling, intuition, whatever. And obviously it's a mixture of the two. It's not about men or women. It's about the masculine and the feminine. But on that note, one thing that I find saves so many relationships is, I know when my wife starts talking, sometimes debriefing about whatever's going on, I remember right in the middle of the conversation to ask, are you telling me these things because you want me to fix it and save you? Or are you telling me these things because you want me to quietly listen so you can debrief? And most men instinctively would jump in and fix it. And then there'd be the whole row about, you're not listening to me and blah, blah, blah. And the bloke's thinking, well, you're in pain. I don't want you to be in pain. Obviously, you want me to fix it. That's why you're telling me. And that's where it goes wrong very often.
And that's a great point, because I think sometimes by debriefing, just allowing that person to speak out loud, tends to dissolve a lot of stuff that's going on. Anyway.
Absolutely. Plus, in telling someone else, it puts it in a certain order that makes sense, so it can't be seen. So it's not a huge frenzy of emotion, none of which makes sense and all of which is flying around so quickly. And it's out of control. So that's a big tip. And with men, or with the masculine rather than men, it's very easy for me to work with them, be very clear about their life script so far and what the patterns are, what keeps playing out, and what their belief system is behind it, and change it at the core. Once it's changed at the core, and a man has the tools to keep it that way or to keep adjusting. And I'd imagine this is exactly the same with physical training. It's all about adjusting. So you learn the technique, you learn the form, and every time you do it, it's adjust, breathe and get it right and adjust. And it's the same with the mind, it's the same with the emotion. Rather than second guessing and surviving, it's what is going on right now. And rather than reacting, it's like, how can I respond? How can I adjust to this? Rather than I need to fix it and save it, it's more I need to be with it and choose how to respond. It's almost like a trip from am I to I am. Am I getting a sense of self from the outside? Am I popular, safe, in control, whatever? Rather than I am, which is acceptance and an extension to the present.
And how many, and I keep going back to this self-awareness, but there's kind of a gap there, isn't there, to have that choice, especially in the fitness industry. We're talking of masculinity and especially the male personal trainer. I'm not quite sure if they have that self-awareness because they have masked it so much by going to the gym. That's their identity. And you mentioned it briefly about how you can either own your story or your story can own you, and your story, your upbringing, etc. How you didn't allow it really to own you, but you did it on one hand, but on the other you didn't. I suppose my point, following on from can we sit there and just listen to our client that's in front of us? This would be even more powerful for the trainer if they could also do the same and listen to themselves a little bit better. How does one trainer identify that within himself? Because I know for me in my personal journey, you're right, it took me to be successful, to have many clients, to have the studio, to have the car, the watches. But like you, something just didn't feel right inside. And I suppose my question here is, could a male in particular pick this up before it gets to that extreme? Or are you saying, no, they have to really be absolutely in pain?
No, absolutely not. But these days, people are looking. People are looking to just get out of the slightest piece of pain. And most people can do it these days, where in the past, the resources weren't there, the awareness wasn't there, the space wasn't there, it wasn't normal. So people are choosing to be powerful and creative in their lives rather than simply surviving. And I would say for a man, one of the key patterns I've always spotted is the issue is generally that there is no space for them in their own life. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they want. They know what other people want, and they know how to keep money coming in, relationships going, popularity, even if they have to sell out on themselves, go against their own values and what they believe in. But people are turning it around far, far earlier. I have, I guess most of the men I work with are 30s, 40s, but I've got enough 20s, and I've even got them into their 60s, 70s, 80s. And it's not about their age. It's all about the stage that they're at, where they either think, I'm stuffed, I need to do something now, or they think, I'm over this, I want my life back. I need to live my life. Or I'm going to have a kid, or I'm going to get married, or I'm going to, commit to something. It's like, I need to sort this out. Yeah. It's very rare that I have blokes who really have good lives that want to say, look, I need to check through and I'll make sure this stays, and I need the tools to keep this going because I don't want to lose it. Life's too good. And that's great. That's really something. And that's asking for the tools to manage, change and grow.
Yeah. And you mentioned that more and more men are seeking you out at an early age. And in the industry, the fitness industry, men do start off at a young age. I know and that's one of the things that attracted to bringing you onto this show was that I know you've worked with personal trainers. What's your experience with personal trainers? Is there any commonalities? Are they any different to any other male? Or is there something that really sticks out to you that, look, if this is one thing that I identify with trainers, and it would help them if they would come to understand this quite quicker? Or do you have any tips, advice on working with personal trainers?
This is walking on thin ice for me. I have worked with a lot of personal trainers. I was also once the marketing manager for the rebrand of Maxi Muscle a long time. Yeah. So I knew that industry very, very well. And to be absolutely frank, I would say 80% of the personal trainers that I've known got into fitness and got into training in order to survive their childhoods, in order to survive being bullied, being short, being whatever they think they were lacking. Very often they compensated or overcompensated with physicality. And that's just the starting point. That's fine. It really doesn't matter. Body dysmorphic disorder, BDD, is getting a lot of press these days, especially BDD in men. And this is about getting obsessed about how a man looks and size and, I'm too fat, I'm losing hair, I'm not, it's all about looks. And it's getting a sense of self or self-worth, not only through looks and feeling good, but more than that, that's the I am. The am I is, how are other people treating me? Where am I in the pecking order? Am I being feared? Am I being respected? Am I being, if I just have to show up and be pretty, then I can cover up that I think I'm really fit.
That's a great point. So you feel that that trainers in particular, get in good shape, get obsessed, really obsessive about it as a way of
compensating.
Yes, proving to people that they're worthy, they're good enough.
Yeah, I'd say that's how it starts. What I love is generally I find that a lot of these guys that I've known, they grow up, they calm down, they get into a greater sense of self-acceptance, and they think, well, actually, maybe there is something to this body thing, and they get to know how the body works, and they get to know their bodies, and they get into health issues rather than just pretty stuff. They get into the depth of it, and they really get something that they can offer and share with their clients. And then they need to deal with the BDD and their clients.
Yeah.
And as I'm sure most personal trainers know, a client with BDD is regular business.
Yeah.
So it's a fine line. And, this is something that I've had to deal with my work big time, is a lot of blokes, especially boys, irrespective of their age, want someone to tell them what to do, want to hand their power over, want to be, accepted and liked, but also led. Where for me, it's about empowering my client so my client doesn't need me. And with some of the personal trainers I've worked with, it's about letting people know about their bodies and giving them things to do. So they have the choice of coming, they don't have to come. So many men have wanted me to be their teacher or their guru or their big brother, best friend, whatever. And I will take that in the beginning to establish safety. And so we can really start with the work. But then the power is to go back to my client, and they need to be self-sufficient. And I find that the personal trainers that play clean, they have better, healthier lives and businesses. They get recommended, they get interesting clients who really grow into their bodies and their power. And some might stay and some might go. But the good ones have a sense of quality and self-worth and what they need to pass on. So maybe a personal trainer might think, I'm thinking of someone in particular who had huge issues with his height, as well as his weight, as well as his intelligence, from a big family and being bullied from a very young age. Not necessarily directly him, maybe him a little bit more than the others, but that's just the culture of where he was brought up. Everyone bullies everyone, and relationship is expressed by bullying and being bullied. Now, he started getting fit and into his personal training to compensate for that. And then he really got to know about food, and he really got to know about nutrition, and he really got to fine-tune his art. And and now I wouldn't say that those things are his issues. He's not thinking, I'm the short guy that needs to compensate. He's thinking, I know about bodies and stuff, and I can make a difference here, which is a huge change in perspective and a huge stress off his shoulders, because he's living a life that's really contributing something and bringing him alive and doing a lot of good, rather than just concentrating on his lack. So personal trainers, it's a very powerful position to be in, I would say, because it's dealing with a lot of people's fears and intimacy. It's also being regularly there for someone. And a lot of people don't have a friend that they'd see once a week or twice a week or once a fortnight or whatever. So it's a very regular, trusting relationship. And I would say it would be quite simple for personal trainers to pick up some very basic tools of how to communicate, because a lot of personal trainers, like hairdressers, can be treated like therapists, or can be treated like the best friend that they haven't got. Or, there's so many things that can, if they take on, I guess, female or gay clients, then very often there might be some sort of a projection or charge that also needs to be worked through. So it's a really important place to be aware and to remember to just hand the power back. As soon as the client says, well, there's this and this and this, what should I do? Then I would generally ask maybe something like, well, what are your what are your options? What outcome do you want? And teach them how to work backwards and take responsibility rather than jump in the drama and just, feed it in the way that I guess that's the way people would.
Yeah. And that's a really key point there, many key points. And what I really took from that was the power that a trainer could have if first he admits to his own challenges, let's say, overcomes them, becomes very self-aware, really gets to work on that. That would then also have a knock-on effect to the sort of coach he would become when coaching his clients, which then would probably attract a different kind of clientele, or clientele that really do want to change for the reasons that you've just mentioned, because they do come to a trainer now more than just fixing a boredom problem, which is or show me some new exercises. There's a whole lot more to it now.
Exactly. And the good ones I've worked with, they allow the raw material in their new client to say, this is what I want, this is where I am, etc. And as they start the journey with them, and for me, it is meeting them where they are and walking it through and remembering to tell them to, the adjustments and the feelings they might be going through, and not just pushing them through silly ass fashion to cause some damage. But as they go through it with them, to make sure that they are aware of what they're doing and how the body's responding, because then the training really starts. Then the client and trainer can go into a different depth with a mission, rather than I need to lose my belly fat and have biceps. Yeah,
and that's a very valid point. I suppose with the personal trainers, being that if you're talking of the male personal trainer, they can't necessarily have these conversations on the gym floor. And I briefed you on this in before we got onto this interview today. What would you say it's the same for them, that as with many guys, that more and more trainers are coming to you at an early age? They're not shy of having this conversation.
Totally. People want to talk. Mm-hmm. Men want to talk. They just need to know where, how, and who with.
And that's a great point, because when I seeked out coaching, I couldn't look, there was no one in the fitness industry that could, I couldn't find anybody that could help me on to this kind of level of coaching, should I say. And I had to look outside the industry myself. And I still think that's true today. Yeah. I'm getting more and more of them. And what I love about the ones that I work with is they get to see how their clients reflect what they love about themselves, but more often what they hate about themselves. And then how they'll treat the client, how they'll undercharge, overcharge, overperform, underperform, hate them and bitch about them behind their back, or be jealous about them. And, and all of these things, everyone and everything that crosses my path is, as far as I'm concerned, a clue. Yep. Because I get the feeling, I get a response in my body, my breathing, whatever. And it's a clue about where I am, where I'm stuck, what I need to deal with, etc., etc. And it's not all work, to be honest. It's just the greatest fun, because I spend my life thinking like Columbo and living like Columbo. And Columbo is just the best TV show. So they get to see, as soon as they're with their client, where their client is and where they are with their client, and how to own that issue and move on, which is the gift that someone that they don't like might bring, or how to allow themselves to have or be like their client if it's someone they want to be like, and everyone gets to grow. Yeah.
the more I remember having a batch of personal trainers where I realized that what all the blokes I was working with at that time had in common is they all were so muscly or so able or so whatever that they got clients who wanted to be like them and wanted to be in their company, and they got to strut around and feel good about themselves. Meanwhile, most of them had minor depression issues, and it wasn't a trainer working with a client and growing. It was more some sort of a show off and some sort of a wanting to be the leader and playing the old role and feeling good about themselves.
Yeah.
And they carried on having attracting clients, but the clients, neither of them grew.
Yeah.
The clients continued feeling crap about themselves, and the personal trainers continued compensating. So it was a lose.
Yeah. So I assume that can only lead to further challenges for the trainer down the line if they're not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or not really making change or sustainable change in the client's life.
But then, to be fair, there are also those that just continue playing that game years and years, and they get more depressed and they need to have more of a compensation for the depression, whether it's food or drink or drugs or BDD or God knows compete, whatever it is, whatever the addiction to make them feel okay about themselves. So it can take over, and it just gets more and more toxic and alone and deeper down the hole until they get a little bit older and think, well, now what am I going to do? Because I'm too old to change what I do. I don't know anything else. That's what I mean by men having no space in their lives. Yeah. It's like, now I've got this choice and this choice in order to survive. That's not good. That's no space for themselves in their lives. But, as I say, it's not about age. It's all about the stage. And I've had them at every age saying, okay, so this is where I am and I need to change something. I can see where this is going and I don't like it. Or I've got all my boxes ticked and I've never felt so alone in my life. Hot soul of the nightclub, but still.
Very interesting. And you mentioned the certain things that you identify within trainers and men. Would you say that a lot of them do have broken families at a young age? Probably no father figure around. Just
personal trainers.
Know this.
That's a strange one. As you mention it, the ones that fly through my mind actually have. Yeah. And a lot of the blokes that I work with, I would say, have lacked this male role model, whether it's a broken family or whether they come from a very wealthy family and they were sent off to boarding school. There's still this lack of a male role model, protection, cherishing in a way. And that can be compensated. I mean, personal training, thank God some of them go to personal training because so many of them go to whichever club won't reject them, which is very often the drink club, the drug club, the victim club.
True. Yeah.
And once you join any of those clubs, then, it's not easy to leave because finally there is community, there's acceptance. I have a place, I belong, etc., etc. And with the addicts, including some quite heavy drug addicts that I've worked with, they generally go back to they're not the drugs necessarily, but their people, the sense of belonging, the people that they know, they love, whatever. And they take the drink, the drugs, they get into the panic survival stuff in order to have company, or quite simply because they know how to be in those relationships. And it's too lonely and too scary to let go of control and allow something else to happen. And by far, I would say the most courageous thing, irrespective of the men's stories, the most courageous thing they all do is at some stage, generally with support, they will go from surviving and being in control into being out of control. And and usually the control came in a stage in life. It could quite simply be the first day in school, or it could be the mother or the father leaving the family or someone dying or whatever. But they go in control at the time of real pain and fear, at the time of a broken spirit, the first devastation. uh, and that kind of automatic pilot control in the background that runs them for the rest of their life. Thank God it's put in place at that stage in life, because then they've been able to survive their lives for decades, for years, for decades. But then it gets to a stage where that control is a limitation. That control is actually killing them. The thing that survived, the thing that helped them survive, and the thing that protected them is now the thing that's killing them. They've outgrown it. So that's where, in a way, playing Columbo again, we go to the scene of the crime, we understand it, we deal with it, we own and accept that part, and we move on.
Wow.
That's where the story is owned by the individual rather than the individual owning the story. And I've worked with a lot of people that have done a lot of crazy, absolutely stupid things that have stuffed their lives up, basically because that's what their peers were doing, or that's what they needed to do to be accepted and belong. It's a huge thing for males to admit and to allow themselves to be accepted by the others and belong. I'd say the two things that run most males that I've worked with is fear of abandonment and the fear of humiliation.
Yeah, I can vouch for a lot of what you just said then. With those being challenges in my upbringing, should I say. And yes, having a broken family as well. Not necessarily so much as my father was around, but wasn't present, should I say.
Yeah.
And that's what led me to this seeking out coaching for myself. And that kind of leads me on to the next question.
Can I just say, that is exactly how it works. Because if it wasn't for that childhood and you unlearning it and undoing it and getting present and taking care of yourself, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing now.
True.
And for me, that's what it's about. I want to know with everything, I want to know why. Why did this happen? What's life trying to tell this person? Why does this keep repeating? And 10 times out of 10, as people unlearn their crap, they always uncover the tools for their pathway. They get to know who they are and things fall into place.
Yeah. And one big thing, which I heard on another podcast interview that you had, you said how love kind of set you free or gave you some kind of freedom. And that's what resonated with me the most. We don't have a lot of time, but if you could just quickly run over that. And what did you mean by that?
Love. I don't remember that, but I can tell you what's on my mind now. I believe that there are two ways of being, and that's coming from my love or coming from my fear. And it's a simple adjustment from one to the other. Sometimes it's not going to happen straight away. I'm working with someone at the moment who has just split up with his girlfriend after a long time, and there's so much of the old stuff coming up. So silly ass little techniques are not going to work and they're not helpful. This is the time to go down into where it stinks and work through it and come out the other end. But very often in a day-to-day, when I need to adjust from fear into love, from disconnected and absent to connected and present, I will catch myself thinking fearful thoughts or second guessing or trying to control or generally worrying about something, busy down this downward spiral in my mind. And when I catch myself coming from that fear, then I will stop mid-sentence and not think it through anymore. And as I stop, I breathe in and I think, thank you for reminding me who I used to be. And who I used to be, and it's in the past, was a ball of panic. Yeah. Like most people at some stage used to be. And as I breathe out, I take part with what's in front of me. I would, in my earlier years, I would attract girlfriends and best friends and situations where they would play my shadow part. They would be the anger that I wouldn't own. They would be the rebellion. They would be all sorts of things that I wouldn't own. And I would continue attracting these relationships, maybe with narcissists or whatever, And I saw the pattern and I thought, well, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life with that. I know how to survive it. I know how to do it because that's all I've had. And it came to a time where I wanted to basically meet the woman of my dreams and settle down, or not settle down, and live happily ever after. And I wrote a very tight, specific list, not only about her, but also about my lifestyle, about the way I feel, what I do with my day. It was down to details. And I thought, this is what I want. And quite simply, I've learned to give energy to what I want to grow rather than energy to what I want to go. If I give energy to what I want to go, obviously I'm going to grow it.
Yeah.
So I had this to focus on. And I went out into the happy hunting grounds and attracted women. And some absolutely amazing women, some absolutely perfect, unbelievable Plan B first reserve women.
I kind of resonate with, because I did something very similar to you, and I classified them as high standard. These women had high standards in comparison to the women that probably, for whatever reason, and this is how I just kind of compartmentalize it, is low standard. Though there probably wasn't. It was just me that probably had the low standard, should I say? But yeah, so yeah, I can resonate with very much with what you said then in terms of identifying not only this woman but also your lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. And also with a lot of people, it's like, what status will I have if I'm with this woman, or how will my life change? And I realized, looking at my list, that there are things there that actually I need to be rather than have her to be for me.
Yes.
I need to own my own anger. I need to own my own sense of worth rather than the woman on my arm gives me a sense of worth. Whatever it was on that list, I had to be. So I kept adjusting myself and going out, feeling differently, thinking differently, and adjusting. And I attracted different women. And it was absolutely amazing. And I thought, my God, why didn't I learn this trick in my teens?
Yes.
It was amazing. And I guess because I was brought up a mummy's boy, I was responsible for my mother's emotions and all the women, etc. You know, it's like the John Boy Walton syndrome, the eldest son, that I was used to attracting women. It wasn't an issue. Yep. Where a lot of men have different belief systems about women and they're brought up differently and they don't attract women, or they don't know how to, or they don't know how to speak with them. So again, it's the stuff that needs to be undone to allow this to take place. So I attracted by being me rather than being a good act or being a great proposition or some cheap razzmatazz that I really didn't want to be doing for the rest of my life. I became the best of me. I felt so much bigger. It was more vulnerable, but the vulnerability actually brought me alive. And out of control is vulnerability. But it's like that, my relationship to vulnerability has totally changed. It's now the most powerful, honest, clear place to come from. And that's where I'm at the foot of magic there. So I went back out in the happy hunting ground myself, and I really did attract the woman of my dreams. And for the first time in my life, I mean, we've been together, 13 years now, maybe 14. And she asked me, we're both ex-Catholics, so neither of us were into marriage. But out of the blue, she asked me to marry her.
She asked you?
Well, yeah, leap year, 29th of February. It's the day that women ask men. So I didn't see it coming. No. She asked me. I was blown away. It's like, oh my God, is this how it feels for a woman when a man asks, how do I behave? Do I have to be nice now?
I don't know how I would react to that.
Oh God, you know, that was a proper that did my head in. And we've got married 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago. And the key that makes our relationship work is I am on my path. She is on her path.
Yeah.
And we can walk beside each other, we can skip, we can walk in front or behind each other, whatever we want to do. But we're not enmeshed.
Yeah.
She's not a replacement for my old dramas. She's not a vehicle for my fears and emotions. But we are two adults having a good life, a really good life, better than I have ever seen or imagined. It's just this, I've done all sorts of dangerous things, from shark feeding in Fiji, bungee jumping, skydiving, working with dying people with Mother Teresa. It was all quite scary. Not as scary as being in love and opening up and being more and more of me and allowing myself to come alive. Love is where the fear is.
And I'm very glad that I asked you that question, because I'm learning more and more about you, and I really want to continue this conversation, because I relate a lot to what you've just said. And that's what kind of more or less set me free. Mine was uncertainty and trust, etc., that I had to get to work on. And I presented it to myself a little bit differently. This girl that I identified, this woman, what would I have to do for her to be attracted to me? So that made me get to work on what I had to get to work on. Yeah. And then you brought up something, talking of relationships, and just to really round up this interview with yourself, coming to understand relationships as a personal trainer, whether it's love or with your clients. Another poignant thing that you said also was, I believe that many personal trainers don't really get into the industry with an overweight problem. They're kind of more or less in shape, should we say, and it doesn't take them, it's not too difficult for them to get in shape. So it's very hard to relate to that clientele, that a large proportion of their clientele probably wanted to lose.
So true.
So learning about themselves, or coming to understand what might be affecting them that isn't so much a weight issue, really, and connect that relationship with their clients, I think, as well. So that means getting to work on themselves as well, to understand.
Yeah, that's spot on. And they're the huge lot that I didn't mention is the ones who are always naturally good at sports, physically fit, one of the boys, etc., etc. There are loads of them, and they just naturally do what they're good at. The only time, so they come to me generally when they're beginning to grow older or thinking about older age and thinking, okay, so I don't know if I want to do this all my life. Who else am I? What else might I want to do? And what do I want to do when I retire? Because a lot of them stop at the personal training in their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever it is. But yeah, there is the majority of blokes who are just naturally good in the playground, good on the sports field. How could they not do this?
And I think it's okay for them to admit that they don't want to continue in the fitness industry as well. I think that's a good point to
absolutely
say.
But to relate to the body of someone else like that is huge.
Massively.
Absolutely huge.
And I personally believe that will create uncontested market space for the trainer, because it is a very overcrowded, aggressive marketplace. It's huge. Yeah. You know, working with Maximuscle, that's a supplement company which is huge. So Kenny, just to kind of really wrap up the show, and we've spoken about a ton of things which I know is going to be very valuable to the trainers and fitness professionals that's listening in. How could people find out more about you? I know you have certain things going on, and I'm particularly interested in the men's group and how to set them up, but please share where people could find you.
So yeah, Newsweek wrote The Man Whisperer chapter about me in a book. So my website is www.themanwhisperer.co.uk. And the best thing to do is check it out. My website's being changed, but check it out. Get on the sign up to the newsletter. And that's where there will always be updates of groups coming up, workshops coming up, stuff when I've been on podcasts like this or TV or Huffington or whatever it is. Videos, a lot of videos go out. So sign up to the newsletter, and lots of goodies coming your way. And with the online groups as well. And with some clients, it can only be quite simple email. I can time for emails and charge, and it's one or two simple questions. But, my thing, I guess, if I can leave one thing at the end of this, is a lot of people, especially men, can think, when I do this, I will have that. When I find the next workshop that's going to change my life, or the book or the training or, whatever it is. And for me, the key is now. It's right now. Mm-hmm. Change it in a breath. And it's not necessarily take action now, because sometimes it's time to sit with things rather than take action. But it's be with what is. Step number one is always acceptance. And then, respond in the moment. and make it now rather than when this, when that. It's now. There is only now.
Yeah, and that's a very important point. I think there's a huge difference in, and this is a kind of frustration of mine in the industry, is we constantly tell our clients to seek us out and have us as a coach, personal trainer to them. But these personal trainers don't necessarily have a coach for themselves. And I think they don't really experience how powerful coach is until they do actually get coaching for themselves.
Absolutely. My personal trainer's got a coach.
Courses, yeah, they do something for you. They do help you grow to a certain degree, but there's nothing like getting a coach and working on that intimate level that offers a different perspective and insight than you can ever possibly imagine.
So important to go through it. Otherwise, there's a disconnection from it. I do the same every now and again. They call it supervision. After seeing so many clients, or after whenever I fancy it, I go and see my therapist, who's a supervisor, and I can debrief whatever I want to debrief, and even say, this client pissed me off, or this client is just great and I want to be like him. What's that about? So keep clean. If I'm clean for me, then I can be clean for my clients.
Excellent, Kenny. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I took great insight from that myself, and I'm sure many people that are going to be listening to this will do as well. So thank you. Absolute pleasure. Good to hang out. There you have it, brothers. Mr. Kenny D'Cruz sharing his personal experiences of working with personal trainers just like you. Again, you can find more about Kenny over at www.themanwhisperer.co.uk. Now, in the meantime, if you have any questions about this show, then head over to the Fitman Collective Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/the Fitman Collective, where we'll be having deeper conversations about this. It is a confidential place where we'll be helping each other become better personal trainers by becoming better men. Finally, be sure to check back and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss part 2 in this series of Untold, the new personal trainer model. Next up, we have 6 times natural bodybuilding champion and my personal coach speaking about what it takes to become a better personal trainer by becoming a better man.
Thank you for listening to the Fitman Collective podcast. This is your life. Don't settle for mediocre. Don't settle for average. Don't even settle for great. Beware the average man who attracts an average companion. Beware the great man who believes they've achieved everything and appears just a little too comfortable. Don't be them. Become the patient wolf. The Fitman Collective is waiting for you. Know yourself. With us, reinvent yourself and your place in this world. Body, mind, health, relationships, career, money, all of it, and more. We can never be caught. We can never be categorized. The Fitman Collective reinvents the future of the Fit Pro. The Fit Man makes his own fate. Join us at thefitmancollective.com.